you do get peer reviewed. You do get reports at the end of the month saying how many statins were your diabetics on, how well are their A1Cs controlled, and those mean the same thing. What?
Well, and you're handcuffed by, and a lot of patients don't understand this. I've talked to so many medical people. I understand it, unfortunately, better than most patients, but a lot of patients don't understand standard of care kind of dictates what you're allowed to do. And ICD codes, you have to come up with a code that kind of is your protocol, and why are you doing the things that you're doing so you can get reimbursement from insurance. All those things are like the moving parts of the medical system that the average patient is just like, make me better, and the doctor's going, yeah, but I still need to do this. And so it is a lot more convoluted than people realize.
Oh, it's profoundly again, the rift in my person as I went through, I'd been flown to the White House for top 100 physicians according to your data, working for underserved patients. I'd had a lot of accolades in the world of medicine, and really aggressively teaching in the medical schools and taking medical students to Haiti, doing the kinds of things to say, how do we cultivate the next generation of physicians? And then I've locked horns with judge me by the size of my enemies, because that when you say I'm an independent clinic, I am not a corporation. I did that, and I said, no, thank you. I'm not going to do this anymore. Can't do it. And it takes the pay way down, and God bless it when the receptionist kid has an illness, because you don't have 40 people lined up that can take it over and do her job. You have to run the clinic with one less person that day, unless you overstaff, and then it's cost. It's really an equation in a family's survival if you're going to be in medicine outside a corporation these days. And then add on to that if something goes wrong with somebody that's on keto, and they say, if they post on the world, my doctor is, and here's what she did, and it's great. That's one thing. But then I had a complication. I passed out while fasting and bonked my head, broke my neck. Those kinds of things actually happen. And then when you're the doctor standing outside of the pack, it's called a peer review, where your peers review what you did, and they're all like, you're on your own, girl.
Well, and the ironic thing, let's not pretend like the traditional way of medicine doesn't have risks where patients have things that go wrong with the protocol they're supposed to do, with the standard of care. So they go on a statin medication and they still have a heart attack. But doc, I thought that was supposed to prevent a heart attack. Well, it was supposed to. I guess you have bad genetics. And it's just round and round we go, the finger pointing at doctors trying to do things for their patients rather than just a protocol. You're not looking at your patient as a lemming, you're looking at them as a human being. Yeah,
no, it's real. So when you look at your journey, kind of walk me back through where your life has gone since keto. That was the two keto dudes, so and Keto Fest. Because as you've continued, your following is just incredible. So your sustained journey is something to be praised. Tell me how your keto. Are you carnivore? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the last 4 years, so that would have been right after you and I talked. About a year later, I decided, you know what? I don't really like vegetables. I just want carnivore. So I did. I went carnivore. Not anal retentive about it. If I eat a vegetable or any kind of plant, I'm going to die. Yes, no. If I want avocado, I'll eat avocado. If I want nuts, I'll have nuts. But for the most part, it's animal foods. I get local grass-fed beef from my local farmer's market. I've got backyard chickens that I get fresh pastured eggs from. I use grass-fed butter in my cooking, obviously spices and salt. That's pretty much my sustenance and has been for 4 years. I still, Annette, deal very much so with adipose tissue in my belly. And so I've done a lot of different biohacking types of things, from obviously just basic walking, doing some infrared sauna. I'm currently on an ice bath kick. I don't know if you've seen some of my videos.
I did see that. So that's why I was like, I kind of scrolled through your stuff going, I got to ask about that.
Yes. So I'm doing that for 5 minutes a day in a 32-degree temperature. Look, I think the lesson that I try to teach people in my own work, and I know this is something that you try to teach your patients, is just stay in the game. And
yeah, amen.
This for 18 years, and I still learn new things. I feel great. I have lots of energy. My brain health, I would not trade my brain at 50 years old for all the money in the world to go back to 20 something again.
Amen. Right. No.
And I kind of wish I could go back to school so I could run circles around all those kids. Like from a mind
I bet
standpoint,
you could still do that.
far past what I was even 10 years ago when I had been doing this for a few years. So I'm not where I want to be in my weight, but I am exactly where I want to be in my sleep. My stress is controlled. I eat well. Like, I think subjectively, those things are devalued in this culture where it's got to be weight loss, weight loss, weight loss. I don't really care about weight loss if I feel good in my own skin.
That's huge. You know, again, I got into this space because I'm an internal medicine doctor and I do bread and butter, diabetes, thyroid, blah, blah, blah. But what really gets me up in the morning to come to see patients is when I'm dealing with brain injuries.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the big contracts I had that actually just ended right before COVID was Department of Defense asking me to train their counterterrorism leadership on how to heal a brain injury. And this wasn't what prescription to write. It was many of the things you just talked about, that here's how well it grows in the teenage years. And if you have a head injury, then here's why it matters. But then here are some things that when I take care of, if you're 20 years in the space of head injuries, yes, there's concussions and brain injuries and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and depression, but there's a lot of addiction. And when you're trying to say, how do I help somebody whose behavior keeps undoing what progress we've made? And you can't escape that when the insulin is high, when the body mass index is above that 25, the rate at which their brain ages. And in part because of that chronic inflammatory process that is, you know, the antidote is a state of ketosis. And
Yes.
To know that when I started here, it was to save my mom's life. And what it has augmented is this opportunity to say, yeah, brain injuries are awful. That your gift of saying my brain is what I really care about, and I wouldn't go back to the version of me that was before this.
Right.
You are right. That's the most important part of, I can fix the leg. We can find a way for the, you know, plenty of those, even when lungs and heart and liver don't work right, but the brain isn't working right, that's where, and they come into me saying, Doc, I think I'm glitching on some memory.
Yeah.
That means we're 10 years in, buddy. That means we have a whole bunch of debris in the brain, and to reverse that is hard. So having the opportunity to say, yeah, I know we talk about weight, and that's how you get people through the front door. And I also know that most people who stay consistently keto grow almost all carnivore. I mean, I don't advertise that word because I think it scares the newbies.
Right.
Like, what do you mean I'm totally going to give up vegetables? I'm like, okay, just wait. Talk to me in a year. And the whole point is, please tell me you're still trying in a year.
Yes.
Because if you look at the version of you when you started, and then you added another little thing you improved, and then you added another little thing you improved, and now 18 years later, you're pretty good at this diet thing.
Yeah.
But it's a skill set you acquired by failing and trying again, right?
People ask me, Jimmy, how do you get such good deep sleep? Well, there's a lot of things that I do, but one of the newest things that I recently added is this upgraded magnesium from a company called Upgraded Formulas. Go to their website, upgradedformulas.com, and you can learn all about this nano technology that they use for this particular mineral of magnesium. Again, it's called Upgraded Magnesium, and it's got all the different forms of magnesium in it using the nanotechnology, so it gets absorbed a lot better. Guys, I have seen my deep sleep improve by as much as 30 to 40% simply by adding in this product along with sunshine exposure, darkness in the room, cooler temperature, all of the things that I always have done. So again, upgradedformulas.com is the website. Go check them out.
And the funny thing is, I didn't have to label any of it. I just did it. And like over time, even when I was still keto, whatever that meant, I was having hamburgers with cheese, and that would be all I ate. And my wife at the time would be like, are you going to have any vegetables with that? I'm like, I don't really want them. And so I was drifting towards carnivore before I even knew that's what I was doing.
And that's really what naturally happens as they get healthier. But to try and shove all that into I'm actually impressed at how well keto has been. You know, my husband, when I was trying to figure out a title for the first book, I kept wanting the word keto to be in the title. He's like, you can't do that. It just sounds fake. It sounds so sciencey nobody can understand it, or it just sounds awful. And, you know, I hate it when he's right, but I think he was right.
Well, the battle I had with my publisher at the time when they came to me and they said, hey, we want you to write books, and what do you want to write about? And this is 2012. And I said,
good Lord.
I said, ketogenic diets, because I was doing testing of nutritional ketosis on my blog at the time, and I was starting to get some really interesting results. And they're like, yeah, that's kind of a niche. They were into paleo at the time. That's kind of a niche thing. Nobody cares about keto. And I'm like, you're so wrong, but please. And they're like, what else you got? So then I was
So
like,
what was your first book?
so what's that?
What was your first book then?
So with them, my first book was Cholesterol Clarity.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
But the problem was cholesterol, the story had been told. Malcolm Kendrick, Johnny Bowden, all these guys had amazing books on cholesterol. I just did the Jimmy version of that same story.
Readable and relatable to patients, though. So good job.
And it did pretty well. And I said, please let me write the keto book. And so they finally relented. They're like, okay, but we don't think it's going to do very well. So then this book came out in 2014.
Oh, brilliant.
Thank you. And this was the first book that ever had the word keto in the title. And within 1 week, that book sold more copies in 1 week than Cholesterol Clarity had the whole first year.
You win.
And so they were like, you were right. Sorry. And so, and
hold on to that. Yeah.
Thing a few years later at like the Keto Fest conference and KetoCon, all the things. And now we're starting to see kind of keto wane, and everybody's like, what's the next trend? And I'm like, no, I think the next trend is just find what works for you and do that.
And I think you're right. I think there's a huge prospect for having people in the world of keto. And then that's one of my assistants coming back from lunch. But the problem of having a course of somebody who starts out with these insane goals, like right now you can Google keto and say you should lose 150 pounds. Yeah. And I'm like, no. You just got to start with enough rules of improving that chemistry and that first little step. But if you think about you and I, that was so many years ago. Reminding ourselves that that's where the average person still starts is really worth remembering and appreciating. Oh, you're going to be a while. I shouldn't deliver all this in 2 sentences.
So Annette, I want to run something by you because I've been getting away from explicitly saying keto or ketosis or ketogenic. I think it's become kind of blasé. It's almost been bastardized and co-opted by our culture. I like the concept of low insulin diet. So whatever that means for you, some of you are more insulin resistant. And so low insulin diet is going to be a little bit different than someone who's more insulin sensitive. And it doesn't put any kind of food value on it. It's like what works for you. And so what do you think about my idea of low insulin diet?
I think it plays right into any physician who's watching someone on a ketogenic journey. I mean, what is it about the cholesterol? What is it about the brain? And what is it about those heart risks that we're really trying to impact with the guidelines? And it is to remove inflammation and to have the patient reverse some of this insulin resistance. You can find the studies that say it's not reversible, can't do it. That's not true. But you can't reverse it with 3 square meals a day. You cannot. I mean, yeah. So one of the when Any Way You Can came out, again, praise God for my husband that I did that. And then so the book came out, and I had this woman who it's South Dakota. I'm picking up my son from middle school. It's freezing out. The windows are frozen closed, and somebody's pounding on the window, saying, and then she holds the book up to the window and says, "Did you write this?" Wow. I'm like, get in. I can't roll the window down. It gets in the chair and she's like, "Do you know what they fed me at the hospital?" I'm like, back up. Why were you at the hospital? So she had colon cancer. They removed the colon cancer. And during the colon cancer hospitalization, she was fed pudding. And she was reading my book at the time. And so she's begging to become my patient. And I'm like, my staff will kill me if I add one more patient to this right now. I have too many right now. And she goes, "Well, then you need to start a class and I'm going to be your first student." So this keto support group started, and it was literally the basement of my office hadn't been rented out. and there were some folding chairs. The heat wasn't turned on for, I think, the first 6 meetings.